Today is the 8th December 2022. We'll have a conversation here, quite simple, considering that I learned new, words today. It's a word that indeed is an acronym. It's named BDSM, which means some kind of, mental disorder or disturb, in my opinion, but sometimes we will not have desire. It's a role in play involving bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, and other things. Subculture, it's considered a subculture. It means that goes at the underground, and sometimes people can make money with this or something like this, but once in a while things that has tragic events. And some groups, some sexual preference sometimes got in an area as vulnerability, and kind of is a victim as itself, can be a star or whatever, and it will be a special victim maybe. We will observe that these elements here kind of in a subculture involving bondage, discipline, dominance, submission leads to something very near, very close to as suppression, oppression, by the argument as doing the punishment in some way, using sexual, preference, I would say, or something like this. But sometimes things got really serious, and we must have our model to support this. The thing that what we will have to observe is indeed reported. It's on Risk Report, December 8, 2022, Trust Judicial Research. The first thing we moved and presented risks at the supply chain with arguments to judicial order, which is on Brazilian Constitution. You must request any kind of information that you need and must be properly offered, or fake records and things are obstruction in America and a violation of your guarantees at national state America. Another one, the first one was made by the interference at the judicial secrecy that put ourselves here, and having now the observation as supply chain, underground, tracer, cross-cut. We will observe that this kind of sodomism, I would say, or this thing as BDSM acronym, has death events. Sometimes is prepared in order to get this kind of death events. Can be a model that even if it's not recognized model all around the globe, at the catwalk or whatever. And then we have that problem known as human trafficking, torture, and other issues. And after the death, we have organs offered as a black market, huge center on UK, Europe, great provider on Asia, and Brazil is leading to become, it's an underdeveloped country in a way, but when you talk about criminal purpose, Brazil is always prepared to lead. We will only have interest on it. By this, I'd like to have declared by the judicial court having the case to cut my ties as soil and blood with Brazil. we will observe that is like this. We will observe that we have the local of debts, instruments, purchase, and factory. Indeed, we will have a complex model here. First thing that we are using as method the industrial routerization. The death event as something on the underground can be the use of very forbidden substance or very curious sexual practices. We'll go at this area always. In general, you will try to attract your victims at the regular area, setting stimulus to bring them to you. Can be the drug, can be the financial gain, an advantage, or even have someone isolated and setting a date by website or whatever, and then you have the tragedy as an event. But always goes at this area. First thing we had, it's the segment. We could observe that our model now goes like this. This is the area, a social relation that you have. But the segmentation leads to something that only goes at the underground. But you must have your victims clustered from those areas. Indeed, you use parties, and inside the parties you will set the groups. Inside the groups you will have the monitoring, like Brazil do, for instance, violating your privacy or a lot of things to check your vulnerability, check your gains. In the end, go by department with corporate peers associated, and they will kind of have now the transfers by entities, stalking and harassing the victims to the underground. On the underground, we had this sexual dido as a machine that you set, you put things really absurd there. And sometimes by bondage and this argument as discipline or whatever, in abusive relation, it's not normal, something normal. We will check. It's curious that Brazil never had this. Brazil never had the solution about the proper thing. Only bullshit all the time. We observe that indeed this kind of thing seems that had been prepared to in order to get this death event as something, a show business or whatever, or show. You have the regular area, parties, groups, vulnerables at the group, attraction of vulnerables to the underground. At the underground, those sexual didos as machines sometimes can have, a serious problem, hurt someone seriously. But how can we work with? We are working with the industrial routerization. We have the sector, the segment regular with vulnerability, the transference of vulnerables by stimulus underground, segment underground. Those machines in general, or they have any kind of factory, or sometimes they are handmade. You will work with the reverse logistic. We will have the letter A as the event having the death, the local as death event. Let's check the model. It's the local of death. We will have the B as the instrument that caused the death. Sometimes that machine with giant dido or something like this. And this machine will have kind of the purchase at some areas. And the purchase will be offered using the factory. Sometimes it's handmade And in this case, you must research and track pieces of the instrument. Now we will construct our model. The first one, it's this kind of thing. You will check the vulnerabilities at the area, prepare even to have the attraction of vulnerables. In general, these goals violating your privacy, your property, all basic rights and guarantees. The stimulus will put, or even sometimes the need, you like to be, a big star, achieve a music award or whatever, and then you kind of run this kind of evil thing. You'll be here we have those instruments in general can have this local SDF event, have the instrument, the purchase, the model will go A, B as instrument. This area here now will be B as the purchase or the factory, and here you have someone who bought this kind of thing. Credit card research, you have this thing. In the same way, now we do the cross-cut with the previous model, considering the research Asia, Europe, Americas, having the IoT, setting the range as dialogues, and the credit card after have the instruments tracked. Don't count with Brazil to do serious things. For sure, Brazil is inventing problems, is unable to offer solution by departments. It's a criminal conjuncture. It's a serious thing, a serious issue, something going on, and the vulnerability go by sexual preference or whatever. You must have this special victim and continue working with this and take, some elements out to avoid a tragedy. Have a great night.